is being recorded.
All right. Good morning. My name is Tim Stafford. I'm a health engagement consultant with Cigna, and today I'm going to be talking about financial well-being. I think we sent over a financial well-being worksheet earlier. So just take it, whenever you get a chance. It's a great little reminder to fill out and take pause of where you're currently at with your finances. I'm not a investment consultant. I'm not going to be talking to you about your 401k today or specific, financial advice. This presentation is more about how our finances, our financial well-being relate to our whole person health. So how it affects us physically, mentally, emotionally, in different ways. So when you're thinking about health, we think about healthy habits, and the healthier you are, the stronger you are, the happier we are. So same with our finances. If we're practicing good financial healthy habits, then we're going to be more successful financially as well. So some of the things we're going to be talking about is how do you feel about finances? Where did that initially come from with your family? What are some of your current spending habits? What are your financial personality types? And then kind of giving you a roadmap on where to start. Because if you know where you're at currently with your finances, then now you have some direction on how you can build upon it. So, and I anticipate us being here for about 20, 30 minutes, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So, did a quick introduction here. We're going to be talking about habits and behavior, mindset and motivation, lifestyle goals, and how lifestyle goals are different from financial goals, and how easily it is to kind of confuse the two. And then kind of a short conclusion here. So nothing too long, just about 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll have this recording for you to review later on. Okay. So the first thing is, how many times have you stayed up at night thinking about expenses? So has anyone had an unexpected financial situation come up? Like, think about your car. Has your car ever broken down suddenly? And did you have money set aside to repair it right away, or did you worry about how you were going to find the money to repair it? So
never really ready for that.
Yeah, same with me. I remember, my car, I went in for one flat tire and then realized there are 2 or 3 other things. Whenever you take your car in for repair, they always find something else that needs to be done to it. And, $100, $200 expense can easily turn into a $500 or $1,000 one. Right. And now you're worrying about can you sleep at night when you're thinking about how you're going to pay for it? Is it stressing you out? Is there any type of physical effects? The worry is having on your blood pressure. So you can see how something unexpected, like an unexpected financial shock, can affect you in many different ways. And so how can we change this? We can't prevent, accidents from happening or things from happening, but we can certainly prepare for it. So we're trying to kind of take ourselves from a high-risk situation to a low-risk situation. Okay, so this is a good slide. It really says, what does financial well-being mean to you? It has to mean something personal to you. Is it meeting your basic financial obligations, like your basic needs, your basic bills, your week-to-week, your food, your rent, your mortgage, clothes, things like that? Is it feeling secure in your future, where you have a nest egg set aside in retirement to live off of when you're not working anymore? Is it, having some extra money, to make choices to allow you to enjoy your life? So we don't live to work, we work to live. I think that's one of the phrases. So, we could, literally save every dime we have, for retirement, but then not enjoy life at all, on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. And we want to enjoy life, and we want to spend money on things that we have fun with. And then I think the one that really stands out to a lot of people here is, how do we absorb a financial shock? So a financial shock could mean, like your car suddenly breaking down, or maybe you get injured and you can't work for a while, or a family, a family member passes away, things like that, that you lose your job, what are you going to do? So we can't prevent everything, but we can certainly prepare for it. And it's less stressful for us when we're a little bit more prepared, Okay, so based on our different life stages, we're probably going to think about money in different ways. So if you're a new hire, you're probably going to maybe set up a 401k. You're going to set up, some health insurance. It's going to be very different than if you're a new parent and you're putting the money that you make into, your children, feeding them, clothes, things like that, as well as going all the way to retirement. Maybe you're saving, a little bit more. You finished paying off your mortgage, and now you're saving a little bit more for retirement, which is going to be, right around the corner here. So, personally, I just got married, so we want to buy a home and have a family. So, before when we were younger, we like to do a lot of traveling. So now we don't do as much traveling because we want to put our resources into family planning. So we'll have this slide available in this presentation, available for you later to see, so you can review back and refer back to and see, what life stage are you at and how are you using your finances and resources to match that life stage. Okay, habits and behavior. Okay, so obviously everyone feels something about money or finances, and where do those feelings come from? Where do you think they come from? Where did you first learn about money? When you were a kid, right? So you would see your parents spend money. You wouldn't think, how could I say this? Like, was in the household when you were growing up, was money always a stressful situation? Was it something that your parents worried about, that you could see that they were worried about it? Or was it something there was pride about the kind of money you have, or there was joy? Where on the spectrum did you start first identifying with money and finances, and then how are you carrying that now into adulthood? Okay, so I think the point I'm trying to make is that our path, where we first learn about it in the past, is kind of maybe where we're currently, affects where we're currently at. But now where we're currently at, we can make changes along the way for our future. So we're not chained by our past and how we, view money. But if we don't know where it came from, then we don't know how we can change it. Okay, so spending behaviors. There's different types of spending behaviors, and where are you in the spectrum? Are you impulsive? Do you see something you want? There's a phrase like, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. Do you want something and therefore you buy it? Is there a distinction between needs and wants, or are you weighing the pros and cons of your financial choices? Or every dollar you spend, you're spending it on something fun and you're living in the moment and you're feeling happy and joyful and having a great time, but then when retirement comes, reality hits and you have nothing, kind of thing. So are you impulsive? Are you more practical? Do you weigh the pros and cons? Are you doing a lot of research in your finances, or are you more risky? And not only do other different spending types, but also factors that influence how we spend money based on our age, our income, our personal beliefs, our social pressure. If our friends and family are doing a lot of traveling, do we want to travel with them versus I'm in a different stage right now with my wife where we want to buy a home, kind of thing. So if our family is pressuring us to do a lot of traveling with them, then we're going to be, spending the money on that and not with what our priorities are for buying a home. So a lot of this has to do with identifying and be very conscientious of our priorities with spending versus just kind of our mindless, impulsive kind of habits that we've picked up, good or bad, throughout our lifetime. But if you can identify what those habits are, good or bad, then you can keep the good ones and you can change the ones that you want to change.
I think sometimes it depends on the time of the year. You can sometimes get more impulsive or risky.
Yeah.
And with your age, too, when you're younger, you're a little more impulsive, and then your lifestyle starts to change. You get a little more practical, and then you start planning. But when you get older, you wish you were more planning when you were younger, but you don't think so.
Exactly. So when you were younger, maybe you were more impulsive. You weren't thinking about the security of owning a home and not having to find, income for rent if you didn't have a job after you retired, or how you want to live out your retirement. You're not thinking about that when you're 20-something years old. So, I think one of the things I'll talk about today is just how we're going to balance that out a little bit. So, can you still have fun and do a lot of things that you want and need, but also save, a little bit extra for the things that you're going to need down the road? And it's hard to convince kids when they're 15, 16, 17, 18 to start saving, for retirement.
Most of them just think, I'll just go move back home.
Yeah, I'll just move back home.
They don't want to have 40 with kids.
Right? So, here are some of the things that we were talking about earlier is what happened, how do we absorb a kind of unexpected, financial situation like personal injury, the death of a loved one, a divorce, a family medication situation, job loss. So with job loss, they say you should have 3 to 6 months of your salary, saved up so you can maintain your same, standard of living or pay your bills for those 3 or 6 months, which is kind of the general amount of time it would take for you to, find a new position or a new job, so that you're taken care of during that time frame versus feeling the extra stress and worry of how you're going to pay your bills. Death of a loved one. This happened to my friend recently, my wife's friend Heidi, where a grandparent recently passed away. And I know, it's not the most fun subject to talk about, but they didn't have anything set aside, for the service afterwards, okay? And I didn't even know that services can be $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. I mean, who would ever thought that kind of financial, that much is required, for when someone passes away. And there was, she only has a sister, so now both of them kind of had that extra financial worry, not only going through a tough time, mentally and emotionally with the loss of a loved one, but now how are they going to, on top of that, have a financial burden that they hadn't prepared for, So I have a brother, Tommy, and my parents are in their 70s. So, we set aside a little bit of a fund where a couple $100 or a few $100, each year, each month, so that over the course of 5, 10, 15 years, that adds up, and we have that, for us, for our parents, if we need it, kind of thing. Okay. So we talked about, how does finances relate to health? And a lot of it has to do with our habits, So we've talked about habits before. There's a cue, which is kind of an event or an emotional trigger, something that makes you want to do something. And then there's a routine, the actual behavior that you do, and then you get a reward from that. So my wife, she loves Starbucks coffee, okay? Every day in the morning when she goes to work, she sees the little green mermaid, she sees the symbol, and, she didn't eat breakfast that morning, so she's hungry, and she wants to go in and, she buys a cup of coffee and maybe a reduced fat turkey bacon sandwich, and the reward is that she ate breakfast, she got her coffee, she got to sleep in because she didn't have to make breakfast, okay? And it was very convenient because it was on her way to work. Okay, so that's great every once in a while, but $5, $10, $15, 5, 6 days a week for breakfast can add up to a car payment at the end of the month, kind of thing. So especially if we're saving for other things, So how do we achieve both? And so what happens is that one of the basic ideas around habits is that we have this, we form neurological urges or impulses that help the habits continue. So for her, it's kind of the convenience of not making breakfast, being able to sleep in, and it hits the pleasure sensor of your brain so that you feel good and you want to continue it. So the idea is, if we're going to replace this habit with something else, we still have to fulfill that craving, or the bad habit is going to still continue. Okay, so we're trying to replace we're trying to still keep kind of a reward, but do a different routine in order to get to the same place. Or eventually, we'll just go back to what we did before, what we're used to. Okay, so we bought a Keurig. Okay, we bought the Starbucks K-Pods to put in the Keurig. Okay, and I bought at Starbucks, you can get actually kind of a Starbucks mug or cup that looks like the regular Starbucks cup. Okay, so when she wakes up, she still gets to sleep in, because she doesn't have to get up and make the coffee or something like that. I get up a little bit earlier. I put the Starbucks pod in the Keurig, in the Starbucks cup. It's made for her, so when she wakes up. So she still gets to sleep in, okay? So she still gets the reward. She still gets the convenience, but we're not paying $5 or $10,
every day for that one cup of coffee.
for that one cup of coffee. Yeah, so that's just one example where financial well-being is connected to different healthy habits and how we can change them. You just have to identify what is your trigger that you love. If it's Starbucks coffee, can we give you Starbucks coffee in a different way? What are some other examples that maybe one of you two love that you just kind of automatically buy without thinking?
It's probably the same thing with Starbucks coffee, but instead of doing it every day, maybe we should do it on Friday.
Yeah.
Change it.
Yeah. Maybe it's once a week, kind of thing. I'm trying to think of some other good examples other than coffee.
Lunch, bring your lunch.
Yeah, bring your lunch,
Right. And you're not spending money every day eating out $10, $15.
Yeah. It's the same thing with lunch, and I think, fast food places know this. They know that it's convenient, it's cheap, it's fun, to get the food that you like, really, really quickly. And so you have to then take the same strategies that they use for you to spend money on cheap, easy, fun food. And now you got to find something that that tastes good, that you like, that's also cheap, easy, and fun as well. So you're still using the same strategy, but on the healthier side versus the extra money you're going to spend or kind of the non-nutrition, food you get from going to fast food every day.
Meal prepping on that Sunday.
Yeah.
A few days a week.
Yeah.
Go out or treat yourself on Friday versus every day of the week.
Exactly. And it's interesting because when it comes to fulfilling a certain pleasure or need, they say there's research to show that it's really only the first few bites that you eat that make you happy, and then the rest of it is just out of habit. So if you like M&Ms, then it's really the first few M&Ms that you eat that make you feel good, and after that you're just eating the rest of them where you're consuming a ton of extra calories just because they're there and you want to finish the package and you don't want it to go to waste. Kind of thing. So one practice is, can you save M&Ms for the course of a week or two? Do you have that? So, but our mindset and motivation plays a role in how we look at finances and our outlook. So sometimes we're too focused on the short term, or we're overly optimistic. So most people, they say in America, are more overly optimistic. So if they're more willing to not prepare for something because they think it will never happen to them. So they would never buy life insurance, or they would overly invest in the stock market, never thinking that there'd be a recession, kind of thing like that. So, or confirmation bias and loss aversion. So loss aversion is more that you experience a loss more than you do a gain. So you go and you find a $100 bill in the parking lot. It feels great that you found the $100 bill, but the person that lost the $100 bill probably feels like it was like $400, $500, $600 because they lost something versus gaining it. So it makes a difference because although we do have recessions in the stock market and maybe you did have a loss, it doesn't mean that, and you experienced that loss a lot more, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get back in at some point, but maybe in more of a low-risk situation instead of putting all your eggs in one basket and have a higher-risk situation. And then, it's really hard, when we're talking about finances and we're talking about healthy habits, we're talking a lot about impulse buying. So one of the strategies we talk about in health is to, use mindfulness to control that impulse buying. So you're taking a deep breath and you're pausing and you're going to make a more considered decision on what you're buying versus that knee-jerk, emotional response to getting what you want right away. So the mindfulness approach helps us determine the difference between our needs and our wants. Our needs, we need food, and we need shelter, and we need clothes, and things like that. Our wants could be, hey, I want to go on a nice trip, or I want to buy, something extra, this weekend, or I want to buy a piece of jewelry. But if you haven't eaten yet to take care of needs, should you be paying for that fancy trip? So the needs should always be the priority, but sometimes we can shift our priorities around. Okay, so this is if you know what mindset you're in, then you have a better idea of identifying where you're at. So when times get tough, do you go shopping as a cure to make yourself feel better? Okay, and in moderation may be good, but if all the time, you're probably spending a lot of extra money because you're going through a tough situation. So can you do other things to kind of satisfy that that feeling, or that a feeling like you're in a tough situation, or feeling sad or worried or anxious? Can you go for a walk, or can you go for a run? Can you go to the gym? Can you talk to someone? Can you do different things other than going shopping? Okay, and then there's different personality traits. If you know your personality trait, then you know what your tendency is around around money. So spenders, they spend every single cent they have. Okay, and there's pros and it's not that one's negative and one's positive, but you just have to be aware of what goes with each. So spenders, they spend everything, so they're not saving, but spenders are usually generous with friends. So they kind of want to take friends out, or they want to give, money to charitable donations. So that's good, in some way, but a more balanced approach would be to spend some and save a little. Savers, on the other hand, all they do is plan. They save everything, and maybe they're not as enjoying as much because they're not spending anything at all. The same with, spenders and gamblers are kind of in the same kind of risky situation. Flyers just don't care. They don't care whether they have a lot of money or lower money. They just kind of do whatever they want, whenever they want to. And I love this this kind of quote at the bottom here, the YOLO, and you only live once. Okay, so a lot of times we justify spending money on something because we say you only live once, right? But we're doing that every day. So if you love cheeseburgers and you say you only live once, therefore I'm going to just use that phrase to justify eating a cheeseburger every day. Okay, well, you could have a high cholesterol, you could get, a lot of weight, a lot of different things can come from that cheeseburger, but you're using that phrase as a justification to do something that could, be unhealthy or not save you as much money in the long term. So just be careful how you use that phrase. Is it you only live once, or you only live once every day, or?
Right.
Okay. And then a good way to take stock of where you're at is just by analyzing your spending. So, kind of having a financial diary maybe for 1 week, or downloading your credit card statement, and kind of seeing when and where you spend money and what you spend it on. You'd be surprised at how much money you spend that you didn't really know about on little things here and there. And that can add up to 20, 30%, of your budget or your paycheck just from little things, And then we've kind of talked a little bit about the difference between your wants and your needs, and making your needs a priority first, and then having a little extra over, for your wants. Last few slides here really talk more about your lifestyle goals versus your financial goals, and aligning what your goals and values with your spending habits. So I know a guy named Al. He's in his 80s. He's the security guard at our building at work, and I've been talking to him and getting to know him. And he has 5 children and 15 grandchildren. And he told me that him and his wife had made the choice that they were going to go on family vacations and really invest in enjoying and having fun with the kids as they were growing up. Okay, and they did save money for retirement, but they didn't save as much where they wouldn't have to have some type of small part-time job. So Al has his part-time job at work right now, and he loves it and he has a great time. But some people might say, hey, I don't want to work at all after 60 or 65, but I want to spend my money in other places when I'm younger. So it's not so much where he spent it, it's more the fact that his wife and his goals and values were that they were going to spend more money doing family vacations and things like that, and accept that when he was older, he was going to work a little bit extra, to pay for retirement. It wasn't that they didn't have any retirement at all, and it was kind of excessive or extreme in one way or the other, but his goals and his values matched up with his spending habits in this example. So whatever it is, if you value security, if you value freedom, if you value, you want to buy a home or you want to travel, you could see where if you're investing in a home and you have a mortgage, maybe that mortgage, could, be spent on adventure and travel if that's what your value and your personality type is like. So you have to make sure that you're lining up your spending habits with your goals and values, and you're going to have greater peace of mind versus kind of trying to spread yourself too thin in all these different areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, we have the financial worksheet that I talked a little about earlier, and it will give you some budget templates and some budget plans to be aware of. But in healthcare, there's a lot of different saving opportunities. So staying in network, staying with a contracted doctor will always give you probably the best price and cost for your healthcare than if you go out of network. If you go your preventive care once a year, like I did in January, and found that one of my 4 numbers was too high and I needed to lose weight, I could have easily been headed for diabetes, okay? But I reversed it and I lost 65 pounds, and so now I'm not headed towards that direction anymore. And so having chronic conditions like diabetes costs you a lot of money. It's an emotional burden, a financial burden, a mental burden on you. So if you look for opportunities to save in your health care, then you can prevent those chronic conditions from happening and also be more financially secure as well. Okay, and then the last couple of slides are just kind of a little bit what I talked about earlier and talking the difference between your lifestyle goal and your financial goal, which sometimes they get intermingled. So a lifestyle goal is more dealing with your dreams, your happiness, your joy, your peace of mind, kind of what do you want to accomplish, in your life, or how do you want to live day to day? And your financial well-being, your financial goals could be like, I want to own this house, or I want to drive this type of car, or I want to, I want these type of clothes. But, they don't, just because you have those things, there's kind of an overemphasis of materialism in the American culture, doesn't necessarily give you that peace of mind and joy and day-to-day satisfaction that you're looking for, kind of thing. So just realize that there's 2 different types. Your financial well-being, your lifestyle well-being can be very different than your financial well-being. You can be very happy and content and peaceful without having, a lot of money, kind of thing. And then this last slide here, it just kind of goes back to what we were talking about in terms of healthy habits and financial habits, and kind of just a reminder to you, what are your financial habits that you like, that you want to continue and grow in, or what are some of the habits that you want to change? Is it trying to, change that, 20% of your paycheck that's going to little knickknacks and little things in here and there that you weren't aware of? So you have more money to invest in your 401k or to invest in something else, or are you okay with those day-to-day, little purchases? But it's when we're not aware and we're kind of mindlessly purchasing things, and then we're shocked, where the money went later, that becomes more of the concern versus being more mindful. I think, yeah, that's it. Only you can control, your future. So it just starts, one step at a time, and hopefully this presentation just gave you a few minutes to pause and think about where you're at with your finances. Are you on track with the goals you want? And if you're not, how, are some of these tips going to help you get on track? And you have the financial well-being worksheet that I talked about to kind of, put it down on paper. Once you put something down on paper, or once you have a financial diary and analyze where all your money's going, then you can kind of know where you want to shift things around. Okay. Thank you all for taking the time, a few minutes to learn about financial well-being today.